Welcome, everybody. Thanks you, Rob. I wanted to just remind everybody that you're already thinking about this. If you're going to have any time for yourself or your families or your friends this weekend, that the origins of this day are maybe multiple in their understandings, but memorial has a lot to do with memory. And it's, memory of those who've served in various ways in our country, in our world, in our life, and who have now are not with us in person, but have given us the kinds of ideas that often help us to move on in times of our own struggle. So I hope you have a good weekend. For our group, so for those of you who are new, just to remind you all that we call ourselves an open table, and we try to live out what that means by being open to the perspectives of anyone who is committed to ending homelessness. That's our main criteria of membership. And if that's something you're committed to, then you belong, you're here, you're a member. And if you come regularly, you'll find ways to get involved that may not be so apparent on the surface at the beginning. We did develop some norms about how we talk when we're with each other and how we live in this Zoom space. So just a reminder about Zoom is that we have on most people have a little hand that you can raise when you'd like to make a comment or ask a question. And it helps the facilitator, Rob, to see who's doing that. If you actually put that little hand up there, he can knows who's ready to talk. And then Rob, if you could, maybe you've done it already, I didn't look, but if you could put the norms in the chat. Just want to point out that we're asking people to be aware of, in the meeting norms, aware of power dynamics, and whenever we have disagreements, to challenge the ideas that that people are presenting rather than the people. So respect for one another. We have lots of different ways that we think this problem could be solved and addressed, and it needs all of our ways. So with that, I'd like to welcome anyone who's here for the first time who could let us know who you are, or someone who's come back after being away for a while to remind us that you are also on this team. Just your name, and if you're associated with a group, that helps us to know how we might be associated with you in the future too. So Catherine.
Hi there, thanks for the opportunity. My name is Catherine Hedrick. I am co-founder and president of Next Chapter. We are a shelter and resource for women and children experiencing homelessness in Pierce County. And we just recently signed a long-term lease on the old Morgan Motel off of 72nd and Pacific.
Welcome, Catherine. We're delighted to have you with us and hope we can get to know you really well. So thank you. Rob, I can't see everyone, so if you would call on anybody, that would be great.
Yeah, so Rose.
Hi, I'm Rose Samotiuk with Ideal Option. We just opened a new MAT clinic in Puyallup. Sorry, I'm not quite awake yet this Friday.
Well, welcome.
I'm mentally.
Great to
mentally
have you here in whatever state you're in. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, Rosemary.
So if there are others who are coming in just now, and you'd like to put your name and your group, if you have one you're affiliated with, in the chat, that would also be a way to keep our contacts going. And these meetings are, the minutes of these meetings and an ability to see them is possible on our website. So you can always go back and find the names of some folks that you would like to check up on later. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Rob, for the rest of the time.
Thank you, Rosemary, and welcome everybody. So let's shift to our regular weekly segment about what's happening on the streets. I can see that Jeffrey is outdoors, and I don't know, Jeffrey, if you're ready to, you had somebody at 6th and M who was interested in speaking. I don't know if they're ready yet, though.
She seems to have disappeared this morning, so.
Oh, okay.
But I am at 6th and M. I've been here a couple of times this week and last week. I think there's a sense of doom settling over them. They've seen other issues with sweeps, and I think they're waiting for their turn. That seems to be the impression I'm getting from everybody. Beyond that, that's what I can tell you for now.
Okay. Does anyone else have any information about changes they've seen on the streets, areas like 34th and Pacific, along Yakima Avenue this week? If so, this would be a great time to share those. Jenny?
Well, I guess I'll talk about 34th and Pacific. Again,
Okay.
I was up there just the other day, and they're doing okay. They're settling in. There was a group there looking to sign them up for services, and actually got some people to jump in there and do some service and sign up, which surprised me, and it was good. After yesterday's meeting, that was our last week's meeting, most of the campers there got pretty excited about getting signed up for services, and so it's things are looking promising.
Good. Thank you, Jeffrey. And Jenny, I saw you had your hand up.
So that was us. That was our group, Inside Passages. So thank you, Jeffrey, for coming out and meeting us there. Yeah, we had a really great experience at 34th and Pacific. I took a group of my navigators out, and Colin got pulled away. So he texted Jeffrey, and Jeffrey popped over and met us there, and introduced us to as many people as were there. People were kind of coming and going. And so we just, chatted with as many people. We had some resistance at first, and then as we kind of just continued to mill about, have conversations, we ended up signing up 4 individuals for services with Inside Passages. So we were pretty excited about that. Most of the folks didn't have phones, so we'll be going back to the 34th and Pacific encampment to meet with folks. So we've set up, appointments for next week, and then we'll set up the next appointment. So it'll just be trying to make sure that we maintain engagement with those folks, to make sure that we can have regular visits with them. But we got them all signed up, so we were pretty excited about that.
Fantastic. Anyone else with updates about how they've interacted with folks on the street this week and any changes?
I don't think Casey's here this morning, but she reported to me that she had really good interaction on Wednesday. I think they went to a camp that was under 705, and had a lot of good chats. I don't know that she signed up any clients, but it was very positive, so she felt really good about it. And we're getting better information all the time about what people need and what we need to be bringing out there with us. So
great. And I see Casey has her hand up.
All right, cool.
Yeah, hi. No, I promise I'm here. So yeah, no, it was our first time out with CLR under the 705 bridge, and people were much more receptive than they had been under the 509, which was really nice. And people were just willing to chat with us more. Had some initial conversations, obviously, since it was my first time out there, it was just a matter of like, hey, this is who I am, handing out my card, letting people know what sort of information and resources we can provide. So that was really good. And I'm hoping that we can help some folks get some evictions off their records. There might be a couple of folks who have some LFO questions. But yeah, and if anybody has any clients or knows anyone who has an eviction on their record or has legal financial obligations, please feel free to send them my way. I'll put my email in the chat, and we are happy to help with that however we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Casey. And I see James with his hand up.
Yeah, since Casey went and kind of introduced one of the topics I wanted to address today, I was hoping my staff member Bree was going to be on the call today, but I don't see her name unless she's hiding under someone else's login. So I'm just going to start, and if she interrupts me, that's awesome. But yeah, so I put in the chat the link for our Comprehensive's mobile clinic. The word clinic is a little bit misleading, but it's getting closer and closer. We've partnered with Tacoma Pro Bono. We also have some partnerships with Vallejo, and this week, Jan Renbeck and some nurses, I understand, went out with the crew, and we've dedicated to, like, Wednesday is our day. We have the 705 bridge and I think it's the 509 bridges that we are doing kind of on-site large encampment resource fairs every week. Last week was a perfect number. My understanding, we had like some version of 12 or so professionals there, 12 to 15. We feel like at this point, if you're interested to join us and you're offer a resource, the best way might be to either email me and I can put that information in the chat, or if we can just get your resource information would also be helpful, so we don't overcrowd the amount of activity that we're bringing to some of these campsites. We're starting to get a pretty good rhythm and getting the ability to hook people up with nursing, legal help, coordinated entry, employment help, and we have all kinds of things. And again, if you have a campsite that you would like us to attend to, we're looking for areas that have at least 30 or more folks living there that are not at imminent risk of a clearing, so we can spend each week building rapport and doing that work. That's so that's in the link. You can also find that by going to pchomeless.org, our website for this coalition, and hit resources, and then in the resources page you'll hit mobile clinic, and you'll see that we haven't updated the stuff for this week, but we have updated our location previous to this week, so we're adding a couple. The other thing I wanted to announce, one of our favorite tools to help folks get access to resources is our walk-in/drop-in center at Comprehensive. And we had to close our walk-in services effective the March 20th or whatever of last year, and we haven't opened since. But now, starting on Monday, we will have some selected openings. Again, I can email, or maybe Garrett can update the coalition website. We will offer walk-in services for those that are experiencing homelessness. It's our homeless service program, not the mental health services at Comprehensive, from 1 to 3 on Tuesday and Thursday. We will have a person who can do coordinated entry. We'll have at least one person who can do foundational community supports for employment and housing, and as well as we'll have the ability just to do general creative conversation and system navigation. A couple of things to note that this is for homeless services, not mental health services. So for those that come here that are homeless, that'll be awesome to have a place for them. It'll be to some degree set up with the goal of trying to see everyone we can, but we'll have the doors open from 1 to 3. Anyone who's in our waiting room will be seen from 3 until 4, but we won't be taking new customers after 3. And we do have to limit the seating in our lobby to 5. So we will have a staff that'll be kind of downstairs helping people if we have more than 5 at a time, just kind of waiting outside. We'll put some chairs up or something, but they'll have to wait not in the building or in our lobby space while we try to manage how much we can safely serve with COVID and all that stuff. We also will have the ability on site here from our Genoa pharmacy to offer a Johnson & Johnson vaccine for anyone who comes in for homeless services. We will ask them if they've been vaccinated and if they would like to get vaccinated today, walk down to our pharmacy and get vaccinated today while they're waiting. So we're kind of excited. We'll have a few things. At this point, we're not going to open up that service for other providers to come. We're just going to keep it to Comprehensive for the goal to manage the workflow and the bodies in the building, so they will be inside. But again, I see some people writing stuff in the chat, so I'll make sure to take a look. And if anyone's writing me about mobile clinic information, that you take a look at that or email me directly, and I'll put my contact info in there. I think that's pretty much it. And if Bree happened to jump on in the middle of this and wants to correct anything that I just said about the mobile clinic, I'll let her do that. Otherwise, I'm going to mute myself.
Thank you, James. And I did see one question from Haley Crow about the 509 folks being worried last week about that area being cleared. And if anybody in the coalition has word about that she'd appreciate it.
So one thing that I have worked out with the city, I believe it hasn't happened yet, but they're supposed to notify me of any encampments that are getting set for clearing and the timeline via the HOT team. Since we worked that out 2 weeks ago, I haven't gotten a single email of anything. I even asked Clarissa and the other city staff yesterday if like, am I on the list? Is it working? And she said, I think so. And we haven't set any place at this point. So I will do my best. I'm not going to blast it or anything on the coalition, but I will work with the providers to make sure we're messaging to the folks that are living in the encampments if we know. And this is just City of Tacoma. And again, I haven't gotten any information that says that any encampments are scheduled yet. But again, that's always subject to change. If something safety related or whatever happens, it could always, like, I'm not going to get all the notifications if there's a reason to do it quicker. So there you go.
Yeah.
Thanks, James.
Thank you. Any other questions for James that haven't been addressed? All right, not seeing any. Thanks for that update, James. That's really good, meaty stuff. Jenny has a question for you.
Sorry, all. I'm having major technical problems today. It was Monday. Apologies. Hi to anyone I have not met. I'm here in place of Rihanna Betancourt today, but I work at the health department as a health promotion coordinator and have attended this meeting a few times to give updates. Just wanted to, I will reach out to, or I'm already in contact with some CLR folks. So I'm happy to see James and hear more about the dates and mobile clinic and everything. I just wanted to sort of piggyback on that, James, and say that that I've, through the outreach teams meetings that Valerie at Pierce County Human Services has had in ongoing, I've been connected with like Sonia and Rainey and Rachel and so many other folks at your organization and the encampment scouting team that I just was made aware of with Brianna and Anthony. And I'm not sure why you weren't pulled into the loop on that. Hopefully you're aware, but I'm sort of working currently with those folks and with CMAR to try and coordinate some efforts as far as vaccine goes. So just wanted to say maybe you could join that call with us that's pending for next week, or at least maybe circle back with your folks. Sonia should be aware, and Rainey and others who I've been talking with for the past several weeks. So just wanted to kind of let you know that, so we're not, there's just so many layers, so many balls, so many people on all the teams. I just wanted to say that out loud and acknowledge and encourage us to all close the gap and connect. So thanks. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Jenny. Yeah, no problem. So any other last items for the On the Streets segment this morning? All right, thank you, everybody. And if there are additional items, please do drop them in the chat. As a reminder, we do retain the chat log of what's publicly posted so that all becomes a resource for the group. So now I'm going to shift over to Lori Davenport from Tacoma Pro Bono. She and I were talking about the impending end of the eviction moratorium, and I guess I should double check. Oh, there's Lori. Double check that Lori's still on. And I thought it might be good for her to share with the group the preparations that Tacoma Pro Bono are making related to the potential end of the eviction moratorium at the end of June. So Lori, you have the floor.
Great, thank you, Rob. And Casey, you're here, so if I say anything terribly wrong, please let me know. But otherwise, things are moving fast, and we have no reason to think that the eviction moratorium won't end on June 30th, as we have all been led to believe. So we're operating on the assumption that that's going to happen. We really don't know what it's going to look like. We do know that that does not mean that tenants who owe rent will have their stuff put out on the sidewalk by the sheriff on July 1st. That's not going to happen. People can't be evicted that quickly. And as you all know, a lot of protections were passed in the legislature this past session that are really huge for us. The first I think the biggest for us is 5160 right now, because it's causing us to have to hire a lot of new people and rent space and get ready, because right to council is here for the whole state. But in Pierce County, that means our organization is the one that's doing the most of it. Northwest Justice Project is involved as well, but we're authorized to hire 7 attorneys. So that's really huge. And we're in the process of doing that. If you know anyone who might want to move to Tacoma, and we don't care if they just graduated from law school or retired, if they're interested in learning housing law and being part of this, we have a great team. So we're also looking for a paralegal. We have 2 paralegals hired and need another one. So that's going on. That's across the board. That's for people who are being evicted for whatever reason, as long as they're income eligible, and that's at 200% of the federal poverty level. That takes effect July 1st. That doesn't mean that all of a sudden we're all ready to go, but we're planning for it. The court is planning for it. I think we're doing as good a job as we can of trying to fill in the interim. What they are thinking is it won't be fully up and running until about September, but we're here and we're going to start July 1st. The other thing that is really big in terms of tenants who owe rent is the eviction resolution program. It doesn't affect people. We know there are a lot of other issues going on, and it may, if there are other reasons for people to be evicted, this doesn't apply necessarily. But if the tenant owes rent, this becomes mandatory on July 1st. And fortunately in Pierce County, we've got that going really pretty well already. We don't know, we're expecting some guidance. We don't know if there are going to be a lot of changes, but there is a standing order. You can see the whole darn thing on the Pierce County Superior Court website. It's complicated. You may not necessarily want to know all the details, but basically what happens is if a tenant is going to be facing eviction on July 1st because they owe rent, they have to go through a mediation process. So it can be initiated by the landlord, it can be initiated by the tenant. The first thing that happens if the landlord needs to evict someone, they haven't paid rent, they haven't done anything up to this point to try to do anything about it, they're going to get a notice that basically just has resources in it. It says you owe rent, you may be facing eviction, here's who you need to contact. That's on that sheet is our program, the Center for Dialogue and Resolution, and rental assistance, because those are the 3 things that need to go together to make that program happen. And basically the idea is get people together, work out a payment plan, stay in your place. And that's what we're trying to make happen. So mandatory as of July 1st. If anybody's getting a notice that doesn't look like that, let us know right away. We need to know that. I mean, landlords want to comply. They need to get their money. They have plenty of incentive to do it. Tenants have plenty of incentive to do it too. The message, I think the big message we want to get out is don't move, stay in your place, apply for rental assistance, contact us, contact Center for Dialogue and Resolution. We'll figure out what the best way is to do it. Once that first notice has gone out, if nobody responds, whatever direction it's going, it gets to be like a branching logic thing that is pretty difficult to diagram. We're actually trying to diagram it, but it's not easy. It's too complicated for anybody to look at right now. We'll get there. We want a 1-pager that kind of shows people how it works. There is a 14-day notice that goes out that is like, it's not a filed case, but it's like, okay, you're going to be evicted and we need to do a meet and confer and figure out if we can do a payment plan. So something needs to happen in order to stop that 14-day notice. And the 14-day notice can't be carried out. The eviction can't happen. You can't go to court unless you get a certification from Center for Dialogue and Resolution that says, yes, they tried, they couldn't work it out. So absent that, they can't go to court. If anybody tries, it won't happen. So obviously, if you're interested, read the standing order. If anybody has any questions, we're happy to answer them. And we're looking forward to right to counsel. It's pretty exciting. I want to make one thing that came up when we were at the rental assistance providers meeting on Wednesday. there was a client who thought that her lease ended and that she had to move out. So what she thought, what happens when your lease ends is you leave. That's not true. When your lease ends, excuse me, you go to a month-to-month tenancy. You're not automatically kicked out. This is something that, people don't know. They're afraid that, well, if I don't leave, I'm going to be evicted and then I'll have an eviction on my record. That is not true. You would still have to be evicted. You could be evicted. You become subject to eviction on July 1st if your lease ends because you're month to month, but then we've got just cause, which comes in, and we have right to counsel, which comes in. So the sticking point there is if you think you have to move, you don't. And if you do move, you're not eligible for rental assistance. So that's a bad deal. And that's happened more than once. So good thing to know. Any questions about this stuff?
Sounds like you have a lot of work ahead, and
we're crazy.
Anything that we can do to help get the key messages out to the folks who might be facing eviction. I know we're all ears and how we can help do that. So
great. I'll put a link to our most recent flyer. Basically just says you have rights, get help, and we want to get the message out, stay in your home. It's even if someone tries to evict you and nothing works out, it's still going to probably take a couple of months for that process to happen. So,
Maureen, I see you have your hand up. And you're muted right now.
Thank you. Lori, if you can give us one line that we can add to our email signatures, just the way we've added the rental assistance portal, that I think a lot of us would do that.
That's a good idea. We've added the rental assistance one. Yeah, just add our best thing to add probably for us is just our website, because everything's up right there on the front page. So just say, facing eviction, get help, you have rights, any of those things.
Thanks, Lori. Kelly?
Yeah.
Hi, Lori. Thanks for everything you do. This is amazing information. I did have a question as far as so Goodwill is outside of Pierce County as well. So we span 15 counties, as you know. Do you know, I mean, we're so fortunate to have organizations like Tacoma Pro Bono and Center for Reslog and Dilution. Do you know what assistance or where I could send people outside of Pierce County so I can get this information out?
Yeah, actually, which counties are you in?
So if you took Washington State and you divide it in half, we're the bottom half.
Okay. Yeah, there are programs in every county, and so they're not necessarily just like ours, but basically everybody has to figure out how to stand up right to counsel one way or the other. In some areas, it's going to look like Northwest Justice Project, a lot of people doing a lot of driving around. Other areas, there's already a housing justice project like we have here, so they're just plugged into it. Clark County has a great program, Cowlitz, Wahkiakum. So you just kind of have to look at each county and see what's available. But this stuff is all law for the whole state of Washington. And there is, for right to counsel, there will be a central screening number, which they don't have operating yet, but that works from anywhere in the state. And where appropriate, that number will go to whatever program should get the information. It'll go directly to us for Pierce County, for instance.
Great, thank you, Lori. And Danielle, you have your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to thank you so much for sharing that wonderful information. And I just wanted to confirm what you said. So the moratorium is possibly is going to end next month. So if I heard you correctly, you were saying that clients shouldn't just move out when they get notices, but they need to there maybe need to be some proactive things that need to be done, like apply for the rental assistance that's out there. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Apply for that. Now, once they apply for that, and we know that there may be a wait for that, does that does that allow, will an eviction process still go on for them if they have that information in the system, if they've applied for that?
My understanding is if anything has happened to create the process for coming together and creating a payment plan, and I think that includes rental assistance, then the notice that the tenant has received, that time period would be stopped. They couldn't be evicted. I could be wrong. And there can be issues with rental assistance as well.
Right.
But basically, once the tenant or the landlord starts the process of applying for rental assistance, and either one can apply, that they should not be able to be evicted.
Okay.
And Danielle,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if
Valerie
you can
just
see
put
the
in the
chat.
chat also.
Yeah.
If we work really closely with rental assistance, so if there's something going on, they can speed it up. We all know what each other are doing. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Al, I see your hand up.
Lori, just a suggestion. When you have this flyer or the information, could you distribute it through Associated Ministries and the Ministerial Alliance so that the churches can help put the word out to people?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're kind of still working on what all needs to be in the information, and we don't have the screening number working yet, but once we do, that's a great suggestion. We'll do it.
All right. So thank you so much, Lori. That's really important information. And tied in with that, around messaging especially, I inadvertently skipped right over an item on our agenda. So let's shift back, and we were going to have Teresa and Lori provide a update with some takeaways from last week's breakout sessions around messaging about homelessness.
I'm going to give Lori a chance to catch her breath. And so Lori has gathered all of the information from our last session, where you all did some great brainstorming about what messages we might put out. And so she's going to talk with you about that, what came out of that. I just want to invite you all into this process any way you want to be in it. Lori and I are going to be meeting on Wednesdays at 2:30 for a little brief meeting about this whole topic. How do we make this campaign stronger? How do we even have it out there that people recognize there is a campaign? And so we're working with some of the messaging that you all came up with, and we're asking you to work with it too. So especially if anybody has got a little artistic flair out there, we are creating a Google Drive folder that will have all of the stuff that we can gather about from other places that are doing messaging about ending homelessness, especially anything we can find about ending street homelessness. We're going to create and ask people to create some things about ending street homelessness in Pierce County. So we'll have that there. We'll have, we're going to gather any research we find that relates to that can help you if you're making a case about it someplace. We're creating a PowerPoint presentation that people can take and use as a frame to hang whatever they want to hang on it. Those are the kinds of things that we're starting to do. We're also looking at ways that we can get these messages out. You all came up with some good ideas for how we might push the message a bit more. Anything we're looking at, if we had funding, we would do some yard signs. If we have, even without funding, we can put, if you have some artistic ability to write something, basically whatever that message is that really hits you, something around the fact that we actually can end street homelessness by November 1st in Pierce County. If you can do something on that we can print up, that we can put into this file so people can take it out and print it up and put it wherever they want to put it. But just trying to get some visuals out there as a first step. And then please, if you've got ideas, either send them to us or come and join us for one of those 2:30 meetings. We'll put a link to it up on the coalition website so that you can join us. But we really appreciate that there are a lot of creative ideas. Maybe there are also some creative artistic people. So with that, I'll ask Lori to give us a overview of what people said last week.
Okay, thanks, Teresa. This is getting to be really fascinating to think about. I'll just kind of, I may have missed some things. I may have missed some nuance, but whatever. If there's anything that I missed, let me know. I just kind of want to run through the ideas that people came up with, because the discussions were really great, and it just kind of, you just keep thinking, you know, what's going to work, what can we do, what really resonates with people. Talked about countering what people hear on the news, because there's a lot of misinformation out there. You know, listening for the messages that are coming out and finding ways to counter that. The whole idea that there's not enough shelter for everyone. People really believe that, well, you know, homeless people they're just refusing to go to the shelters. There's plenty of shelter. The idea that we need to put a face on homelessness. People need to be able to relate. They need to be able to imagine themselves in that situation. One way of doing that is to tell people stories, get experiences out there. And the whole idea that homeless people are our neighbors. We're all living in the same place, but they don't have a safe place to sleep at night. And that kind of brings us to the idea that we need to take care of each other. We're interdependent. If we do make sure things are good for other people, things will be better for us. Just imagining what it feels like to be homeless, ways of getting that across to people. And then the idea of just rights, more kind of moral rights. Everyone has a right to be housed. Everyone has a right to have a safe place to sleep. The idea, again, that what happens to one person affects all of us. When some people are homeless, it affects everyone. The big one is that homelessness is not a lifestyle choice. Most people who are homeless are there for reasons that are really complex. All homeless people do not suffer from mental illness or addiction. We can't solve it by just solving those problems for people. It's bigger than that. If there's anything I've missed to add in, but I think that's kind of, it's a lot of coming from a lot of different places, but those are the messages people thought about. Thought about ways to get messages out. Radio, TV, obviously, favorable press, not press that's, you know, spreading misinformation, but press that's actually saying something that's going to help. Podcasts came up, videos, social media. One social media idea that Teresa and I had when we talked earlier was just coming up with like a weekly fact check. You know, here's a myth about homelessness, and then debunking that. Something that like repeats itself so that people can follow it. Signage, like Teresa said, you know, what would you put in your window? You know, like Black Lives Matter, science is real, love is love. Something really that we can get out there that sticks in people's heads. I think that's what we need to come up with. Engaging special interests, people who own pets, people who can empathize with homeless people who do have pets. So that's kind of, that's my list. We can keep adding, but that's kind of what came out of last time and some of what Teresa and I talked about.
So please send any other ideas that you didn't hear, especially if it's something you said last week that didn't make it onto the list and you feel it'd be really good for us to add it. You can send that to either me or Lori. I'm going to put my email address in the chat. And also, if you're interested in doing something artistic, we don't have any funds to, I mean, I know artists are always being asked to do things for free. And I don't like that, but the reality is we don't have funds for that at this point. So if you have something that you can contribute, whether it's an idea or some artwork, please do. And we'll make it available to the general public. We'll just do anyone can view link. So it won't be just for the coalition. It'll be for anyone who's interested in working on this. Any questions right now? I see Al.
I see Al, yeah.
Well, again, a suggestion. Back in the day, a couple of times, I was involved with groups that needed PR assistance, and we talked with J. Ray, which is a PR firm here in town, and they pro bonoed some advice about how to get the word out. And I don't know if they still do that, but my basic suggestion is, why don't we try to tap the knowledge of some of the PR firms around to help with getting this information?
That's a great idea. So if anyone has a contact there that you can recommend to us, please do. And Al, can you type their name into the chat?
Sure.
Thanks. Anything
I'll
else?
type their website in.
Well, thank you for what you added, and feel free to keep adding. It's not over till it's over.
Thank you, Teresa. And before we jump back to the agenda, Mark wanted to offer some further thoughts on the eviction issue.
Thanks, Rob, and thanks everybody. What a great environment this is. And as a housing provider in the area, you know, we are key in the conversation for the housing assistance for those who are delinquent. And I got to tell you, I work with the King County and the Pierce County programs, and Pierce County, Valerie, you totally rock it. I mean, it's so wonderful to have someone like you that really cares about the program and the people that are participating in it and the end cause. Don't really experience that on the other side yet. So we haven't even gotten registration complete in the King County area yet. And already in Pierce County, we've had money flowing since the beginning of May. So well done. And thank you for your personal attention to it. And what's getting frustrating is, just like anything else, there's such a loss of information being disseminated out into the world. And we have people, I think we have dozens and dozens and dozens of people who are in delinquent, and that we have as a landlord registered. And most of the residents have registered also. There's still just so many that for whatever reason, the barriers are technology, the barriers are language, the barriers are culture, the barriers are we don't understand it. Whatever those are, we have people that have significant amount of delinquency that have not registered themselves or finished their registration. And what that does is it puts them at risk of having to go through the pro bono mediation, thank you, and then potentially an eviction. And we reach out, we knock on doors, we text, we email, we send letters in snail mail, and still we're not getting the full participation. And I know, Valerie, that you're working really hard to be in communication with those who are not. And if we could find a way, either through the people in this conversation or the people that are in this conversation with others, case managers and stuff, to support them, so Valerie doesn't have to make personal phone calls to the ones that are beyond the ones that we manage, and we can move with velocity. Because I personally believe that the governor's moratorium isn't based on the COVID impact with less cases, with less deaths or more vaccinations. I think it's predicated on the delinquency that is still in place. And there's still a significant amount of delinquency out there. And if he lifts the moratorium at the end of June, there's going to be tens of thousands of people that are still delinquent now, subject to the eviction process, which would not make sense to me. And it takes a lot of people, and especially housing providers, to be in communication with all parties so that we can set that up and get access for those occupants who are delinquent, who haven't finished their applications, so that we can get Valerie through this program as fast as possible, so she runs out of money eventually. So I wanted to share that from a point of view as a housing provider, because I manage hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of homes in the Tacoma, Pierce County area. And I have influence with other housing providers that are in the county and out of the county, and that are both owner occupied or owner managed and third party managed like me. And whatever I can do, working with whoever it is in whatever venue, I'm on the team to get through this as fast as possible, to minimize the eviction and get the rents paid, keep the people and the families in the homes, have the landlords get the cash so they can pay the mortgage, and then get back to our new life after COVID.
Thanks so much, Mark. And hopefully we can all be allies to everyone in this process so we can avoid that eviction wave that we've all been worried about. So thank you very much. So let's shift in our agenda back to Maureen talking about advocacy updates.
All right, thank you. Mark, thank you. There's actually a message on the listserv from someone's got a Section 8. It's got to be rehoused by June 30th. So can we send that person to you? Absolutely. I think that's what you said. Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. So
yes, absolutely.
All right. All right. Okay. So good morning, everybody. So the first thing is that there is a national campaign. The National Low Income Housing Coalition has a national campaign to try and actually get from the federal government enough money for enough publicly owned housing units, enough publicly subsidized housing units, so that and enough money in the National Housing Trust Fund so that every income eligible person actually gets housed. Does it sound like a stretch? Yes, it does. Does that make it impossible? No. So we've looked at this. There's a request for organizations to sign on. I've sent that out to the listserv, encouraging individual organizations to sign on. I'd like the coalition to sign on. Steering committees looked at this, housing committees looked at it. And with luck, if you can make it possible for me to share my screen, I'll pull the letter up. There's always some risk to this because I have a really awful looking desktop that nobody wants to see.
All right, I made you a co-host.
Okay, we're going to try
so
this.
So the pressure's on you now, Maureen.
Pressure's on me. Did I do it?
It's coming. Maybe.
There you go.
Oh, please tell me.
Yeah, so we can see the letter. It's small. We can also see all the icons off to the right-hand side of your screen.
Well, let's make the letter bigger then.
There you go. Just drag it over and zoom it in a little bit. There you go.
I'm going to have to clean out my desktop if I'm going to do this.
We could just stop giving you a bad time about it, so it's fine.
Yeah, I can't file. I mean, I can file, but nobody understands my filing. I had a boss who actually in the Foreign Service who looked at my office and said, I don't know how she finds things, but she does. Okay, so this is basically the campaign. It's called the Housed Campaign, working to advance anti-racist policies, achieve large-scale sustained investments and reforms. And some of the money required is in the jobs plan. And we don't know what's going to happen to that, but something will go forward. Our national advocates will do their best to make sure housing holds a place as part of infrastructure. And I'd like the coalition to agree that we should sign off on this campaign. And I don't know, Rob, how you want to do that.
I put a poll together, so when you're ready.
Oh, good. Okay. I think we're ready. Any questions? Anybody? Okay. I think we're ready.
All right, it's a simple poll. Should the coalition sign on to the National Housed campaign letter that Maureen just described? Yes, no, or abstain? And it's anonymous.
Mine's not giving me a chance to.
Because you're a
That's because I
co-host.
made you a
Oh,
co-host.
that's right. Okay. Sorry.
Awesome. So we've got an awful lot of positives and not many negatives. I'm going to give folks another 12 seconds.
You may be able to vote now, Maureen, because I took co-host away.
Oh, that's okay. I took the poll away too.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up there, and unanimously passes. So thank you for
All right.
everybody
Thanks,
taking
everybody.
part.
It's really important that as many organizations as possible sign on, so we get recognition that all housing advocacy does not happen within the DC Beltway or east of the Mississippi River. So the more organizations sign off with a Washington State address, the more recognition we're going to get. So a couple of other things. One, the Pierce County Council had a special study session last night on the American Rescue Plan Act money on the fiscal recovery fund, which is the money that goes to every jurisdiction. Some get it directly. That's the 175 million or so going to Pierce County, about 61 million to Tacoma. Lakewood gets its own direct funding. Every other jurisdiction gets it through the state of Washington, and they all get something. So here's what's important about last night's meeting was that this was not just the Pierce County Council meeting. Every mayor was invited from every city, town across Pierce County. The mayor and staff were invited, and most of those folks showed up. Almost every jurisdiction had somebody there. And that that's really important, I think, for a couple of reasons. One is that more than one of them talked about the need for to address homelessness or housing in their jurisdiction. Chairman Derek Young's goal, as much as anything, was to encourage collaboration, either at some level of interjurisdictional, whether it was Tacoma and Lakewood and Puyallup doing something, or it was Steilacoom doing something with the county doing something with everybody, however people wanted to do that. He didn't set out any parameters other than, would you be willing to partner if we can identify key issues and key programs? And everybody who responded said yes. And some of them needed things that can't be covered with this money, like roads. You can't do roads with this money. You can do sewers, but you can't do roads. So the staff, everybody's staff, every jurisdiction, including Pierce County's, were directed to meet and figure out some potential collaborations and come back to the table in 3 weeks. So I think that that bodes well for the comprehensive plan to end homelessness and ending street homelessness by November 1st going forward, because now there's a forum that didn't exist before. And the same thing happened in SHAPE, in the South Sound Housing Affordability partnership, where everybody has parity at the table. And that's really important. You know, it's sort of the equivalent of being the tiny organization at the table with a really large one, and everybody's got the same voice and same respect. And so I think that that was a really good move. Whomever came up with it, I think that was really good. Now, the housing committee, the coalition has a housing committee. We've met twice. And our shining accomplishment is that we figured out when we're going to meet. So the second and fourth Thursdays from 4 to 5 in the afternoon. And Garrett's already put us on the website as one of the coalition's meetings. And I've asked him now to fix the schedule so that everybody knows when we're meeting. There's a housing committee list, or a housing listserv. And please, you know, you can get on that listserv even if you don't want to come to meetings or can't come to meetings. And we're focusing on 0 to 30%. We're not going to solve homelessness until we have enough housing units. And all the services in the world won't get us housing units. And so we've got to do that. And a lot of the money out there for many reasons is either 80% AMI and below, or 60% AMI and below, or 50% AMI and below. And we have got to hold a place for 30% AMI down to 0. So speaking of impossible things. So the next thing is that one of the items in the Washington State capital budget, which is now signed by the governor, was $1.5 million that Representative Morgan and Lehigh got in for a shelter in the Parkland Spanaway area. And so I've asked the Safe Sites Committee if they'd like to talk about that some. Sharon Lee's looking for some suggestions. And so and I know she wants to talk to people, that's not an issue. So, so just, if you have ideas, put them in the chat so we can grab them. And that'll happen when the Safe Sites Committee meets again, June 7th. They meet at Monday noon. So then the last thing on my list this morning is I want to spend a couple minutes on the American Rescue Plan Act emergency housing vouchers. And I know James is on and he chairs the continuum of care. I don't know if Roxanne Simon is on or not. I just can't see everybody right now. And she's also on the continuum of care. And the way these are working, so we've got 196 of these vouchers coming July 1st to Tacoma Housing Authority and Pierce County Housing Authority. The continuum by HUD, this is HUD's rule, the local continuum of care must enter into an MOU with the housing authorities in their geographic area no later than July 31st. And the requirements on the continuum of care are very specific in terms of expectations of not just identifying people for these vouchers, but also the supports to be provided to them so that in fact they have a reasonable chance of securing housing. HUD would like these vouchers out in people's hands in housing within 4 months. And I say that, they didn't say that, but I say that because one of the incentives that HUD is giving housing authorities is $500 per voucher. And after 4 months, it goes down to $250. So that tells me they're trying to get these out. Also, the assumption is every housing authority in the country won't use these vouchers. And there will be some that go back to HUD. And I know that Tacoma Housing Authority has already requested additional vouchers if they're available. HUD does not require the COC to actually manage the program. They just have to see that it's managed. Some COC, some continuums of care operate programs already. They have staff already, that sort of thing. Our continuum of care is in the process of deciding how they're going to make this happen. So the federal law limits eligibility. These are for people who are currently homeless, whether sheltered or unsheltered, for people who are at risk of homelessness, for people who have recently been homeless, and for people who are fleeing domestic violence, which is defined on the continuum all the way through sex trafficking. And HUD's guidance, again, is explicit on these. So one of the things that we have talked about in smaller conversations and that we want to be able to pass on to the continuum of care as they go forward is one possibility would be to look at where we have people who meet the eligibility but are either in permanent supportive housing, they're ready to move out of that to some sort of housing that requires lesser supports, people in tiny houses, people who might be long-term in shelters, who, if we could move them, if they were eligible for some of these vouchers, it's like we double our money. We open a slot in these other programs. So that's one thing to think about. Another thing to think about is how this process can be as transparent as the county Human Services has made the rental assistance program, with that portal that people can go back into and add documentation that the individuals who apply, that case managers, and that, you know, the rental assistance, it's the landlords going in, and this would be the case management support, maybe the land, I don't know. I haven't thought about what it might look like, but something that is, it is easily accessible in all the ways that accessibility requires. Another would be, and this would be something that you all would know or could find out, but how many people who are currently sheltered or are unsheltered actually are housing ready, that they could meet the requirements, the eligibility requirements that are Public Housing Authority requirements for these vouchers in terms of the ID and the various types of, you know, will they pass a background check that a landlord would use? Will they, are credit reports required, all that, or credit scores, all those sorts of things that, you know, the details better than I. And then, and Mark did a nice introduction for this, but how are landlords being engaged now as well as into the future? And, you know, 196 vouchers doesn't sound like a lot against the need, but it's huge against 0, which is what we had, you know, before for this source. And it also, I think that it behooves all of us to help the COC make good decisions. So this works really well, because my guess is that if it does, there's going to be more money coming along these same channels. And actually, some of the document recording fee money, that 1277 money, can be used for vouchers. And some of other money that I found, I forget where I found it now, can be used. I think it's the ARPA money, actually. The state and local fiscal recovery, recovery money fund can be used for vouchers. So, you know, we will not, my hope is that we not only end up with 196 people permanently housed and well housed, but that we also are left with a better system, a better process. I think these vouchers can be used in shared housing. They can be used in extended stay hotels or in hotels that are willing to do 1-year leases. The hotels will have to have a hot plate in the room, but they don't have to have a kitchen in the room. So we can possibly expand some existing models. It's just a great opportunity. And now I'm done. You know how to find me. James, I don't know if you want to add in anything about this, how the coalition can be helpful.
Sure. Well, first, a point of clarity, 100% of people are housing ready. It's just that the housing system is not ready for some of our folks.
Okay, so nicely done.
Point of clarity, yeah.
Nicely done.
Yeah, so with that said,
thank you.
We got to help the housing system start looking at different ways that they can accept our folks, not having IDs, not having disability statements, and not having whatever other hoops that we need through. There is a group that I'm not part of, a subcommittee of the coalition, who I'll be meeting with on Wednesday of next week to get the updates on some of the recommendations. I do know the MOU is being drafted as we speak. Other arrangements with the COC have included that the vouchers get handed to the already existing coordinated entry system, and that's kind of who does the management of the vouchers, and then the COC does the oversight of that. And just recently, we reestablished that the Delmar Algae from CCS is kind of our coordinated entry subcommittee representative from the COC, as well as the person who does coordinated entry for CCS. So he's on the continuum and is our representative. And we haven't had a lot of direct oversight or spent a lot of time supporting the COC, the coordinated entry system like directly, except for funding it and making sure the parameters are met. So we're trying to look at that in the light of this. And then I would say, yes, Amanda from the Low Income Housing or Consortium, I always get it wrong, close to that. Amanda DeShazo and Roxanne are chairing the work that's going to be supporting these vouchers. So I'll know more next week as we're gonna get the update on Wednesday morning. But I think that's all I got. You pretty much got the details right.
Great, thanks, James. And Jenny, I see you have had your hand up.
Sorry, real quick, Valerie and I corrected me, Affordable Housing Consortium. I don't want to minimize what Amanda does, please. Thanks for the correction. I knew when it started to come out of my mouth, it was going the wrong way. So thanks for that correction.
Thanks, everybody. Yeah, I'm actually sitting in on the meetings for the use of these vouchers. Inside Passages is going to be participating in how these vouchers are allocated and used. So I sat in on the meeting this week. So just to give a breakdown on the 196 vouchers, THA has 134. Pierce County Housing Authority has 62. And THA has actually requested an additional 134 vouchers. We don't know yet if those will be approved, but they have made a request for an additional. So that would be wonderful, obviously, if that request gets approved. We would love it if that number gets doubled. So we'll see if that happens. So I can certainly take back any comments or feedback. We have another meeting scheduled on, let me take a look at my calendar, June 9th. As James kind of alluded to, there's an MOU being drafted right now between the COC and Pierce County because it's going to be easier for the workflow that the MOU is between the COC and Pierce County directly rather than the COC and each individual provider of whomever is going to be utilizing the vouchers. So that's how we have kind of decided to proceed and move forward. So we're hoping to have that MOU drafted and ready to go to take to the COC for approval. So that's how that's going to work. And then what we discussed is that the allocation of the vouchers is going to work through coordinated entry. As Maureen discussed, HUD has been very, very firm in how the vouchers are allocated with a diversity and equity lens. And then obviously following the traditional rules about voucher usage. And they are incredibly flexible, as Maureen also discussed. So that's really, really wonderful as well. Utility deposits, moving expenses, household items, renter's insurance. Those are some of the other things they can be utilized for, which is really, really wonderful. So yeah, if anyone has anything that they would like me to take back to that meeting feedback wise from the coalition, I'm happy to do so. I'll drop my contact information into the chat and then happy to do that on behalf of the coalition as well.
Thanks, Jenny. And I see Monique, you have your hand up?
I do, Rob. Thank you. So, Jenny, you and everyone else should know that I'm always going to come at this from the lens of a veteran. So, are there any veteran set-asides, any consideration on a certain number that would go to veterans, or is it just all in?
It is just all in. There's not a particular number set aside for veterans, but that is also one of kind of the lenses that is specifically spoken of when we are looking to allocate these vouchers.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other eligible people could be people in rapid rehousing who are, you know, I mean, just think people who are, I think, we want to focus on people who are extremely poor, who don't have a reasonable likelihood of increasing their income unless, you know, sort of the classic conservative, well, if you got married, you could have two incomes, which I don't find an acceptable solution. It is, I just think it's a real opportunity for us to get, not just get these 196 folks permanently housed, but to also get information for ourselves that helps us to advocate for more of the same. And so, Mark, you're in charge of landlords.
This is what happens when you show up at a meeting, Mark.
Okay, I'll go to the restroom and you can volunteer me for all of it.
Yes, you get assigned work, Mark. You get assigned work.
Yep, I'm in.
One last thing about one of the things that HUD has done is that there's a 180-day window for people to provide whatever is required by way of documentation around eligibility. So they're not going to have it the day that they are, brought into the program, but they will have to have it within 180 days. And if they can't produce it, they will lose that voucher. So it's all of you who are working on this. I mean, James is right. Everybody's housing ready, but this piece of the system, these vouchers are going to require that usual housing authority information and documentation. So it's an
all right.
imperfect
Thank you.
world.
Thank you so much, Maureen. So let's shift to our regular weekly government updates. Clarissa, do you have updates from the city of Tacoma this week?
I do have an update for you guys. One second, I should have had it up and ready.
No problem.
Okay, so the Port of Tacoma is initiating work. This is for encampment cleanups. The Port of Tacoma is initiating work to clear the encampment along 509. We are still working on site design for 69th and Proctor. The updates for the current census and outcomes for temporary and emergency shelters are on the website. I could put the link in the chat in a sec. Rental assistance is still available and the link to the application is I'll put it in the chat. The next homeless update for City Council is scheduled for June 15th. I'll be presenting at that one, and it's tentative to be giving an update on the 5-year homeless strategy I mentioned in a couple other meetings. And also the Beacon Center. And I believe that we heard from Garrett that you guys checked out a location that might be good for a temporary shelter location. So we're looking forward to hearing back. I think Linda invited you all to submit a proposal of what you think that might look like. And that's all I got today. I'm on my cell phone, so my apologies, you guys. I'm gonna go ahead and get those links to put in the chat for you right now.
Clarissa, while you're here, we did talk earlier in today's meeting about the 509 encampment, and you mentioned that in your discussion. Do you have a sense, is there a date for when that area is meant to be cleared?
I don't know. I don't oversee the encampment side. So this is like a bullet point that was sent to me, but I could look into it and see. It says that Port of Tacoma is initiating work to clear the encampment. So it may mean that it's coming soon. I know we put up 72-hour notices and that hasn't went up yet. But I can check back and let you guys know.
Yeah, thank you. All right, any other quick questions for Clarissa before we move on to Pierce County? Garrett, did I see your hand go up?
Yeah, Clarissa, I didn't catch that. Is that the June 15th, is that a study session or is that the council meeting?
I believe those are the study sessions on Tuesdays that we typically present at. And so the team will be given an update on where we are with the homeless strategy and the young adult shelter.
And what were you saying about census? It was like your third bullet point. You were talking about maybe around the strategic plan.
The only update I had about the census was the regular, the census and outcomes for temporary and emergency shelters. It's like a regular update we put on the website every week.
Oh, all right. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Clarissa. Let's shift gears over to Valerie. I see she's got her camera on. So any updates from Pierce County?
Oh, so much going on. So I will not be here next week. My son is graduating from Coast Guard boot camp, so I will be in person in New Jersey for the first time. So that will be, I'm very proud of him. Yeah, he's going to be a rescue swimmer for the Coast Guard. So I will not be here, but I will send you updates. So a couple things going on. I'm going to do rental assistance last because then I keep your attention. We are actually coming out with a new NOFA next week, and I'm going to give you all a heads up that I'm not sure I'm allowed to do, but I'm going to do it anyway. It's called Voices That Matter. And what it is a stipend program for folks with lived experience. So an agency can apply for either to serve all populations or specific populations. So say you're an agency that primarily serves QT BIPOC. You could apply to provide stipends for QT BIPOC. You could apply for LGBTQ. You could apply for veterans. So new NOFA coming out very, 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 very soon. So be ready. We will have a Q&A session. We will have all of those things. I just finished writing it. It's been very busy. So it's going to be up to $150,000. So stipends a primary focus. So just so you all know, if anyone is interested, we will be releasing that next week. The next thing is Continuum of Care. They are going to do a funding cycle this year. We just got word that our GIW is due, which is our grants inventory worksheet. Thank you. Our grants inventory worksheet, which is the number of projects and how much they are receiving. That usually comes out about 6 weeks before the project opens for application. So everyone who's interested in receiving Continuum of Care funding, here is your forewarning. We have $4.1 million. Typically what happens is we receive just enough to renew. So I'm encouraging everyone to come in as a new applicant. It can be rapid rehousing, permanent supportive housing, or transitional to rapid. So those are your 4 primary project types. And they are Continuum of Care funded, so federal guidelines. So just about a 6 weeks heads up, we will be putting that application out here soon. And I will be the primary focus on that one as well. And HUD released on Tuesday YHDP, which is Youth Homelessness Demonstration Project. And it is a demonstration for youth and young adults experiencing homelessness, including unstably housed or doubled up. We have applied for it every year. And last year we were 1 point away. So we will get it no matter what mountains have to be moved. Snohomish County received it that year and they got about $4 million. So $4 million immediately brought to the community for youth and young adults. And what's awesome about it is it rolls into our Continuum of Care funding. So youth and young adults have that continuous fund source from now on. That application is open now and we have to submit by July 27th. So I am very busy writing that one too. And so we will be putting together, and how it works is if awarded, we will know in August, then we have to start writing a community plan in September. Once the community plan is approved by HUD, any project identified in the community plan is funded. So that is going to be a big community effort of everyone who serves youth and young adults, 12 to 24, and whatever capacity of new exciting program we want to try. This is our opportunity. So moving mountains to get that one this year, because honestly, I just don't want to write it again. So I know, Haley, it's so exciting. So we will be reaching out to all of you because everyone serves 18 to 24. So if you have a super cool, new, exciting idea that we should maybe consider trying, this is our opportunity. Maureen already hit on the vouchers, and so I already let you know about next week. So rental assistance. Everyone take a deep breath because we just found out earlier this week we have approximately $100 million more coming, which I had a moment of pure panic. And then I was like, it's okay. We'll figure it out. It's fine. It's going to be okay. We'll be okay, guys. So this goes through 2025, which is super exciting. So I am writing out like a budget plan, making sure we have those dollars all the way through. The new American Rescue Plan goes up to 18 months. But it does include the 12 to 15 months they've already been paid by this year's dollars. So if someone gets 15 months this year, they can only get 3 moving forward. So we're making sure everyone knows that. So right now we have $58 million contracted, moving out the door as quickly as possible. We had one provider cut $800,000 in checks in 1 week, and that's their average. So giving you a heads up of what kind of this looks like. So yes, people are frustrated. They have not been served. I am answering every email and every phone call, but give you a timeline. This does not include last week's numbers, which was our biggest number because I haven't finished doing those yet. But we had 401 households already served, okay, before last week. Of those, we have spent $2.8 million on those 401 households. So that's a pretty big jump. And so then just because I know we should always track that 61% of folks that we have paid rent to are people of color. So we are tracking that always consistently, making sure it's in there. 57% are under 30% AMI. So that's huge because that was our primary goal. So 57%, 29% are between 30 and 50, and only 14% are between 50 and 80, and 80 is the cap. So that's a big 80% of our households are under that primary focus. And these don't even include the ones that we refer to LAHSA, which are City of Tacoma funding. So City of Tacoma, great partner. Love you, Clarissa. We don't even track their numbers. So I'm going to start tracking. I'm going to work with LAHSA to figure out. We refer to them. They handle it. They're a phenomenal program. We are still funding our 8 agencies. Some of our agencies are now subcontracting out to smaller entities. So always feel free to reach out if you're interested in that. And we are looking at what does next steps mean as far as funding additional projects, funding in different agencies, like what do we need to do to be fully successful to get all of these folks out the door as fast as possible, as well as opening it up. The new funding has a little bit different criteria, so we're going to get all that out the door and on the website as soon as possible. So those are my updates. That's it. That's all I got. Oh, and Jenny's great. So everybody give kudos to Jenny at the health department because I'm still involved with that too. But yeah. So I will get these out to you as soon as possible. I want to run this week's numbers first, and then I will be able to give you all the percentages that I just reported out because I'm tracking them every week from now on. So
Thanks so much, Valerie. Great.
Monique, you had a question. How do we know how many veterans? I actually track veteran status. So I will send you, we track over 60, we track under 24, we track veteran stat, like trying to track like everything anyone's ever mentioned. So I will compile this report, get it to you, and see what I can report back.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so I'm going to hand it over now to Jenny from the Tacoma Pierce County Health Department.
Hi, everybody. I'm just pulling up some notes here. Thanks for having me. My colleague Rihanna usually attends these meetings. But like I said earlier, I've come and chatted at you and with you in the past, so appreciate being back. Excuse me, I'm a little cough today. I wanted to just share some overall reminders about vaccine opportunities in the community and then give you some updates on current work and pending planning. And you can always, I'll drop me and Rihanna's email addresses in the chat and you can always reach out to me, of course. Excuse me. So overall, reminders that we appreciate you getting information out to folks is that our webpage is Vax to the Future, tpchd.org, Vax to the Future, which I'll put right here, is where we're keeping all the updated information on vaccine events in the community. And in Pierce County at this point, all sites, all events are open for walk-ins. There are no appointments necessary. There are what we call static sites in Tacoma, Lakewood, and Puyallup almost every day of the week, maybe with the exception of Sunday, so 6 days a week. The webpage that I just shared is where you would go to find times, addresses, and also that should tell you the types of vaccine that is offered. If folks aren't aware of this, the static site in Tacoma is at the CHC Hilltop location on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I believe it's 8 to 3:30. But again, that website is updated constantly with any changes in times, addresses, other details. Again, no registration is necessary. Despite what some of the information on the website might say, it encourages people to register, but is absolutely not necessary. Transportation is also free, round-trip transportation to any vaccine clinic, event, appointment on Pierce County Transit. Rihanna and I just spoke to somebody at Pierce County Transit yesterday to just verify that no proof of any vaccine appointment is needed, and that is what we were told. If anyone hears that people are trying to use that resource and getting pushback or any having any difficulty, please let us know or let Valerie know, and we can do what we can do. But it's good information for us to have. I'm not monitoring the chat, just FYI. I'll get through these updates and then see if folks have questions. Wanted to share an opportunity that's coming up next Saturday with you all. So updates on events and other work that we're trying to coordinate and helping to coordinate. We are bringing a mobile team to the Tacoma Mutual Aid Collective's distribution day. Probably familiar, but they do that once or twice a month, I think. And that is on the 5th of June. So next Saturday, hard to believe it's June already. On the Hilltop 11th and MLK parking lot. Rihanna sent a flyer to this group yesterday, as well as our shelter contacts and our outreach team partners, but I can drop that information in the chat as well. So that not only will typical things that TMAC provides at those events be available, camping equipment, food, other services, but mobile teams will be there to do vaccines, and we're going to be partnering with TMAC's medics actually. So it's some of the TMAC folks that are familiar with the clients and folks that would frequent that event to actually give vaccines. So that's great. We will have $5 gift cards from Safeway for everyone. Kevin and Garrett have been instrumental in bringing items to all the shelter events we've had, and Kevin will be bringing items like hygiene kits and food and water and phone chargers and all that great stuff to this event on the 5th as well. Another event that we will have a flyer available for soon and can share out with you is going to be on the 15th of June at Old Spanaway Elementary School site. And that's in collaboration with Nourish Pierce County Food Bank. This was a location we chose that was informed by mine and Valerie's work with the outreach teams and seen as a location where folks in nearby encampments might be willing to come. As I said, it's in conjunction with the food bank, so it'll be on the same day as the food bank is occurring there. We'll have some items that I mentioned that the coalition is providing and some other food items and possibly other services there as well. Please encourage folks that CMAR takes walk-ins at any location for vaccine. I believe community healthcare will also be beginning to do that if they're not already. I'm not aware that they are yet, but you can always send someone to CMAR for vaccine. And then some things that we are in the process of working on. We have partners, we're partnering with some contractors to help us to provide ongoing support at shelters. So for those who weren't aware, we did nine mobile team vaccine events at the shelters, and I'm working on finding out from those folks what sort of makes sense for like a maintenance schedule of having like a presence of a mobile team to offer vaccines and potentially not just COVID-19 vaccine, but other vaccines and other services like testing in an ongoing way at the shelters through our contract support. So that's exciting. And thank you to everyone who's helped with that effort. What else? Oh, so encampment work is, Valerie and I have been pulling together. Valerie's been awesome in just inviting me and bringing me into the loop with the outreach teams. We've been meeting regularly with folks for the past few months now to sort of understand from the community what a community-informed, ethical approach to this work looks like, and heard from people that pop-up events are great, direct-to-encampment outreach with vaccines is great for some, not for everyone, but that is part of our approach. And so meeting regularly with folks to gather information on where encampments are located, meeting with folks like Greater Lakes, New Hope, CLR, those have been some of the groups that have been especially engaged with us on this. And I'm working with CMAR's chat team to partner with those three groups I just mentioned, CLR, New Hope, and Greater Lakes, to hopefully add vaccine to the outreach that they are doing. Yeah, that was a mouthful. But we will be meeting CMAR and Greater Lakes, CLR, and New Hope. We're all going to be meeting next week. If folks have, I'm aware there are tons of outreach teams. Valerie and I know that there's lots of work going on. The reason that I mentioned those 3 groups is that they especially voiced the ability to sort of work and partner with other, with enrolled vaccine providers, and wanted to sort of lead in that effort. But if you're aware, if you're an outreach team lead, or you want to reach out and sort of get in on that work with us, we would love to have that conversation. And I'll stop talking. I'm babbling at this point. So I'll drop some information in the chat. Please reach out to me, Rihanna, or Valerie with questions. And I appreciate your partnership. And all of
Thanks,
you.
Jenny. And I see Gerald has his hand up. You have a question?
Yeah, well, I think you just answered it, but because I've reached out a couple times trying to partner with you guys. And each time I hear that, we don't do individual, don't go this way, right? Us little guys, we get left out.
Yeah.
But we got, I guarantee you, we got a lot to offer with you for partnership. If you
Yeah.
just reach out with us,
Thank you,
reach out
Gerald.
to us and let's partner, we got a lot to offer.
Yeah, thanks, Gerald. What we've been trying to do is map the areas where there's need, and then, as you know, it has to be an enrolled provider. I mean, there's no shortage of people wanting to go out and do this work. What there is a shortage of is enrolled providers who have the capacity to go out with a lot of individual outreach teams to bring the vaccine out there, if that makes sense. So CMAR is an enrolled provider that is in this space. We, of course, TPCHD is an enrolled provider, but our mobile teams only has so much capacity. We're doing schools, our mobile teams is, to be quite frank, stretched very thin at this moment. And so that's part of the motivation of partnering with CMAR, but they are only one entity too. So there is potential with, we're working with Multicare, who's contracting with Mobile Teams International. And so I can't speak to their capacity at this moment, but I will be finding out more about that. Yeah, apologies for not connecting you with anyone specifically right now, but no, this is just still like sort of ongoing to try and map out the need and then partner the enrolled provider who is able to bring vaccine with the people who want to bring it. And it's I appreciate your patience, appreciate you voicing your concerns and frustration. It's very complex and frankly hard to coordinate. So I will email you today, Gerald, and make sure that we can find out more about what you're able to do and how we can connect you.
Yeah, and I'll just add with Jenny that I think the hardest part is that only certain people can give the vaccine, and that's kind of been what we keep bumping up against, because trust us, we would be all about, as the nurse at my daughter's school said yesterday, walking around sticking people in the arm and being done, right? Like it was the most amazing. My twins got vaccinated at middle school yesterday, which was so cool. On the bus, they lined them all up and stabbed them as they walked. But I think that's the hardest part that we're running into is there's only so many people who can give the vaccine, and then only so many of those willing to go out into the community in this capacity. So if anyone's got any ins, if you've got like a cousin or a friend or spouse, whatever, like we are not opposed to begging, pleading, and anything in between. So reach out. I know it does sound like basic training. Reach out and let Jenny know, because that's something that Jenny really needs our support on, because that's something we just keep running our heads up against. So if you've got somebody in the community, please connect us so we can move that along, because that is everyone's primary goal, is to just make sure our folks who are unhoused get vaccines just as fast as possible.
All right, thanks, Jenny, and thanks, Val. Any last questions for our government updates section before we move on? All right, not hearing any. Maureen, I just saw your note. You want to give a quick update on the ad hoc committee?
I do. The Pierce County Council did adopt the ad hoc committee's action report to end the comprehensive plan to end homelessness in Pierce County at their meeting Tuesday. My understanding is that the steering committee will be convened early in June. Pierce County Human Services is in the process of hiring people as employees with limited duration, up to 3 years, I think is the way it goes, and also consultants on the project. I noticed that they've got a NOFA out for someone to do a homelessness services inventory and a gap analysis. And I'm sure there are others of these. So that's what I know at the moment.
Thanks, Maureen. So the next item on our agenda is an update from the Safe Sites for All group. Jan, do you have an update you could share with the group?
Gosh, Colin is not here, I take it.
He's not when I just scanned through.
Okay, Jeffrey, I'm going to turn it over to Jeffrey. I know there's a lot of moving
Okay.
pieces. New sites are coming on, and we've lost one site on the east side, I believe.
The meeting with the community for the TUUC safe parking site went very well. Visited by the hot team officer, Craig Bennett. Colin was there, I was there, and Cynthia was there representing the coalition. And we got several of the neighbors there who, now that things have been explained to them, they feel far more comfortable with a safe parking site going in. And one neighbor is going to join and help out the church in serving the needs. I've got 6 other churches we're playing phone tag with right now. Is Cynthia here? Maybe not.
She's not.
Okay. That's pretty much what, it was just a good, positive meeting. We were able to calm down the neighbor who is really hot and creating a lot of problems, and it went very well.
That's fantastic news. Thank you, Jeffrey. All right, so next on our agenda, just moving right along, Garrett, you wanted to talk about committee appointments.
Thank you, Rob. So we are going to attempt to do 2 committee appointments today. We have, just a second.
Need some Jeopardy music here.
Always has to wig out at just the right moment, doesn't it? So we're going to do 2 committee appointments. The first one is the Gig Harbor. So basically, these aren't super responsibility laden. They're mostly about being a conduit for information from 2 other homeless coalitions in Pierce County with this one. So there's the Homeless Coalition that operates in Puyallup that meets monthly. And really, we just want somebody to feel obligated to carry information to and fro, so that when the Puyallup Homeless Coalition meets, we kind of know what they're working on or concerned about, and places that we can provide assistance or they can assist us, that kind of a thing. And the same thing with the Gig Harbor Key Peninsula Coalition. So the Gig Harbor Key Peninsula meets every other week and is somewhat new. The Puyallup Coalition's been around for a long time. And so I didn't get an email out to everybody about this, but I think I mentioned it last week. And we had a number of folks volunteer, and we can actually have as many as we want. Really, again, we just need people there listening in and able to report back. And so we have a couple of people that volunteered for the Puyallup one, and that is Jeffrey Boyce and Colin DeForest. And so it might be good to even have a third. The way I'm setting the voting up is basically you can vote for up to 3 people. And that way we'll kind of always have somebody there and able to keep that conduit going. And the second one is the Gig Harbor Key Peninsula. And we already have 3 volunteers for that one. And Joanne Everson, who's recently come to our coalition. And then Kevin often attends those meetings, as does Maureen. And so we have those 3 going on there. And I'm trying to get the poll set up right, and stupid Zoom logged me out. Anyway, so I'm identifying chimneys, so they make sure that I'm not a robot attempting to get these polls set up. So and let me get my chat. Okay, I lost my chat too. Where's my chat? There we go.
We're not sure you're not a robot.
Feeling not so robotic today, honestly. So if anybody else is interested, I would love to have some other nominations, volunteers for either of those liaison, and we can add you in later if you want to think about it a little bit too.
I see Monique with her hand up.
Monique, what do you want to do?
You all up, because I think my program manager is already going to those meetings. She does a lot of work, outreach work there. So if not her, I will go, but I would love to do Puyallup.
Awesome.
Maureen, I see your hand up as well.
Yeah, Garrett, take me off of Gig Harbor and let's get somebody else in. I'll keep doing the legislative stuff for them, but I usually sign off after that. I have a conflict on their meeting days.
Cool. So we still have two folks there, Kevin and Joanne. And again, the commitment is one of those people needs to be at that meeting and provide some sort of a report out, either written out or in person at the coalition meeting. And probably don't have to be at the steering committee meetings, although that doesn't hurt. All right, I'm going to go ahead and throw these up again. If you want to start doing this, you can join the crew as well. I have a poll for the Puyallup Coalition meeting. So again, this is something I would love you to pick up to 3, which shouldn't be too hard since there's only 3 people in the list. And you know, just we have not done a great job of keeping formal communication between these two coalitions. So I'm excited about us making this happen. And Paula's in the meeting today, Anderson, who chairs that Puyallup coalition. So she's been an informal conduit, and looking forward to us being a little better engaged with what we can do to support Puyallup. So I am seeing lots and lots of yeses and excitement. And so I see a yes for Colin, a yes for Jeffrey, a yes for Monique. So welcome aboard to the world of liaisons. And I'm going to launch up the poll for the Gig Harbor Key Peninsula. So we have 2 folks on there. And Joanne just volunteered for that. And Kevin has been good about attending those as well. And this is a fun new group. Not that Puyallup's not fun, but there's a lot of energy to kind of overcome some of the very unique barriers that Key Peninsula has, which are different than the very unique barriers that Puyallup has. It's interesting how diverse are the needs and the political environments. So again, overwhelming support. And that's a bunch of yeses for Joanne and a bunch of yeses for Kevin. So thanks everybody for voting on that. I don't know what we're going to do next week. Maybe we'll take a little break and we'll look over some of the other liaison responsibilities we would like to have. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Garrett. And congratulations for the formality of everybody being named to the 2 groups. Look forward to hearing good things. So we actually are going to have the opportunity to end today's meeting a little early. But I first want to open the floor. If anybody has any kind of announcements that they think would be good to share with the group, this would be the time. Jan.
Actually, I need to lower my hand here. I have a question. The Tacoma Fire Department does not provide the van that they were providing for homeless shelters and sites where folks are that are living in encampments. Apparently they lost that funding. Where are we? Garrett, you might know this answer. Where are we as far as petitioning the city of Tacoma or Pierce County for funding to resume services for transportation, because I think a lot of these COVID questions and other immunizations, and definitely all the medical visits, can be managed better with that van back that is under the auspices of Tacoma Fire Department.
Sure. We have Council Member Ushka with the Tacoma City Council is including that in the ARPA funding request that she's putting out. Colin McCarthy is behind that. I need to send him a bit more information. And I think this is a project that's being taken on a little bit by the Opioid Task Force Transportation Committee. And I've also been lobbying staff on the Puyallup, on the Pierce County Human Services. And this is one of those classic things where there's a little bit of the, Pierce County's like, and why isn't Tacoma funding this? This operates all in Tacoma. And Tacoma's like, why are we supposed to fund all of this? This is providing services for people from all over Pierce County. But I'm hoping we can get some ARPA money in. They didn't lose their funding, they just used it up. So they had $80,000 from the Greater Tacoma Community Foundation. They had a couple stopgap grants, like $5,000 from Coordinated Care, maybe multi-care, maybe, I don't remember. And so we're trying to get some temporary funding through the end of 2022 with the hopes that beyond that we can get some funding more permanently from the Puget Sound Regional Council or the Washtenaw Special Needs Transportation Fund, which is a biennial funding cycle that happens. So that's kind of where we sit. We'd love some other folks that are interested in lobbying on behalf of this super important service.
Can I suggest that we as a coalition draft a letter of support to bring back the services of the Tacoma Fire Department van? Because to use the van is so much more effective, cost effective, and client friendly, as opposed to folks calling 911, or as opposed to folks not being vaccinated because they don't have a way to get to one of these brick and mortar sites that offer vaccine or any other medical services. So I will take that up with the steering committee to draft a letter of support from the coalition to bring back the van. All right?
Got it. Maureen, I see your hand up.
I just want to make a plea again. If any organization is thinking about purchasing a hotel or motel or apartment building or even houses with the state's Rapid Capital Acquisition Fund, that does require a match on round one. And I'm interested in knowing anybody who thinks they want to purchase. And then also any organization that's interested in running a floor for your particular targeted population. So if you could just shoot me an email, let me know so I can add that to the conversations that are going on around trying to get, Lehigh's got one, the Comfort Inn. I know they're gonna apply for that. That's 91 units. I know Sharon Lee Lehigh is interested in conversations with an organization that might wanna run a floor. So just let me know where you are. That NOFA comes out July 8th. And all of the remaining 93 million or so could go in the first round. So we can't count on there being additional rounds.
Thanks, Maureen. Julian.
Thanks, Rob, and thanks everyone for all the work you do. First of all, can you hear me?
Yes.
All righty. The purpose of this announcement is first of all, just to let you know that we do have another meeting coming up of the Pierce County Accessible Community Advisory Committee. And the chat box has the information. I chatted to everyone. So Tuesday, July 13 at 9 a.m. on Zoom, we will have our next regular session. We're looking for new members, new ideas, and among some ideas, Garrett submitted a proposal, and I haven't heard back from the Accessible Community Subcommittee of the Governor's Committee, which makes those final decisions, unless Garrett can update me at this moment. But I also wanted to use this moment to thank the Pierce County Coalition to End Homelessness for this past year and more. When I came along, this is already an online meeting every Friday mostly, and I want to just kind of put in a good word for, I guess people are talking about the next normal, and I've already experienced in some organizations I'm involved with, mostly volunteer, is once we go back to ending the lockdown, we're going to go back to in-person meetings. And I would usually raise my hand and say, can we retain a remote attendance option? And I've already gotten some pushback from someone saying in one particular setting, well, if most people are attending in person, people can attend online, but to observe. The question is, how can we help them participate? And so what I'm worried about is, for the purposes of accessibility, including people with disabilities, whereas we've had this great convenience of attending remotely, and my concern is that we will lose that accessibility. I just wanted to put in a good word for the current accessibility we have, and our Accessible Communities Advisory Committee does stand ready to consider any project to keep things accessible. We will do intake, of course, and I just want to put in a good word again. I'd like to keep this accessible. I don't know the history of this coalition, whether meetings had been in person or whether it's always been online, but I want to just say, please, let's keep an online option. Thank you, Rob.
Yeah, and thank you, Julian. You raise a great point. It's something that we have talked about a little bit. So that is our intention, to be able to still have a way for folks to participate remotely. So thank you for bringing that up. Monique, your hand's up.
Yes, I'm just going back to transportation. If you have veterans who need transportation, I can provide that on a limited basis. So you can contact me. We have to schedule out. I can take them to appointments. Once I get some money to back this program, I'll be able to do it more because I can hire a driver. But currently, I'll be the driver. So if you have a veteran who needs transportation to an appointment, VA hospital, or any other, you can contact me. I will put my email address in the chat.
Thanks, Monique. And Clarissa.
Okay, so my apologies for being a bit scattered earlier. I have more information on 509. I just wanted to share before we end. I guess that encampment by the bridge is not located on city property. It's on port and tribal property. And the port and the tribe are performing and posting a cleanup. The city is going to provide outreach and connection to resources only. And I reached out to James and let him know. And then there's also a contact at the port, Lewis Cooper, that you guys could contact directly if you do have questions. And if anybody wants that phone number, I have it.
Thank you. And did you have any sense of the timing of it though?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Thank you very much. And Garrett, I know you wanted to share something more.
I wanted to make a quick announcement. I'll send out details, but we did receive another grant, our coalition. So we applied for funding from the All In Washington Fund to provide support to coalition members to help connect people to vaccinations and remove barriers. So we received $25,000, and part of that will go to cover some of Kevin's staff time costs. And then the rest is really things that you think would help us to break those barriers down. We talked about gas cards, we talked about transportation funds, we talked about goodies at vaccine events. So we're going to continue doing what what the health department indicates they think would be helpful, but what you think would be helpful is what I need to hear as well. So if you need materials, if you need education for your staff, if you need things to hand out, just to remind your staff to talk to folks about getting vaccinated, we are all in to provide that. So connect in with Kevin. And that's exciting. I don't know that we'll apply for more along this line, but that does give us the ability to have snacks and treats, and hopefully things to remind all of us when we're in the field to talk about vaccinations and how to get there. Thanks.
Fantastic. All right, so we are able to wrap up 3 minutes early. So a 3-minute early start to your, I'm sure you're going home right after this if you're not already home. So thanks for being here this morning, everybody. I hope everybody has a safe weekend and marks Memorial Day properly. And we'll all be back next week. I hope to see everybody.